more basically, I'm not personally a gold bug. I think we might have gone even a bit beyond that. But gold, the value of gold or commodity money is that it reduces the degree of abstraction. And the biggest problem that we have is that we're literally buying at interest every currency that's printed on this planet, which means that every following year we have to buy at least enough money, again at interest, to pay off the debt from the previous year. So you've got literally geometric expansion in your money supply. And that is, we've literally gone vertical. And that's actually why I think we might have gone a bit past gold at this point, because even to get back onto a gold system, the global economy is going to have to collapse so far and so deep. It just makes the head spin. I grew up in Zimbabwe. I grew up in one of the preeminent examples of catabolic collapse in an economy in human history. And I can tell you that having grown up in that was peanuts compared to what we're looking at right now.
So going back to gold would cause a short-term severe hurt, and I don't think anyone who's looked at the subject would deny that fact. But would there be any long-term benefits from doing such a thing?
I'll say one more thing. It would be horrible if the economy did come down because of us going back to a metal standard. But if you look at what's happened over the last 100 years, we got to stop what's going on now, because World War I started in 1913, right after the Federal Reserve was enacted. Next thing you know, we have World War I. And then we have World War II, then we have Vietnam, the Korean War, then Vietnam War. Then, countless wars ever since then. And it's all money related, because this cartel for world domination, say for instance, he's Germany and he's an industrial titan, and I'm the United States, an industrial titan. If they can spark a war between us, we're both borrowing from our central banks, which gives them both power in both countries, and then they can use the war to get rid of civil liberties. And if you look at right now the war on terrorism is 100% being used to destroy our civil liberties. And their answer for every time, with the Patriot Act, we've been able to tap all of our phones and do all these other things, they use the excuse of, oh, well, we need it for the terrorists. We need it for the terrorists. But if you read the Patriot Act gives the executive branch the power to label you an enemy combatant, you an American citizen, an enemy combatant, and be picked up with no due process. And just because it hasn't happened yet doesn't mean if we face a dollar collapse that the executive branch won't start labeling us domestic terrorists.
And one would, kind of on that thought, it's one quick point. It's not, I think it's a bit reductionist to label that organizations like the IMF can directly cause the war, but it's just that they give the possibility for cartel dictators to have access to funding to increase their agenda to a scale they didn't have before.
That's right, but without having the funding, it'd be impossible to have the war. And so if you have bankers saying, okay, hey Hitler, we're going to give the Third Reich all this power, we're going to give you all the funding to build your military machine, and then come over here and say, okay, FDR, we're going to give you money to borrow from us, and you can go ahead and bankrupt the United States, and we'll bankrupt Germany and the US, and the world government wins. So I guess as far as I'm concerned, the banking system's whole goal is world government, but it's not one with civil liberties involved. My personal opinion.
And just going right back to that, I'd say I can't make the jump and say that their goal is control and keeping their own going, but I will say that it is not for civil liberties, because I can say that, but I can't say because that doesn't get brought up enough. Anybody else? We're running low on time. Other thoughts?
I just have a question. So if it's not if it's like a corporation, like who profits off of like that interest that we pay? Like who gets that, or does it never actually like come to an amount that someone's receiving?
The owners of the various banking corporations, they're sort of conglomerated. Federal Reserve, Bank of England, Bank of Europe, and before the Eurozone was created, you got like Deutsche Bank and Banque de France, stuff like that. They were all the same company. Like how I compared it to the different names that General Motors uses. So those guys are all benefiting from loaning a nation's money to its itself at interest. So there's, there's some stuff that gets into a bit of the conspiracy theory aspect of it, but that and the sad thing is a lot of it can actually kind of be concretely proven. That there are 13 families who sort of run the whole deal. There's about 300 people within the innermost realms, and then there are thousands of people who are just there carrying out the duties, but don't actually know like what it is that they're participating in. And so that's sort of, it sounds a little out there and nutty, but that's what it is.
It does sound ridiculous, but David Rockefeller had his memoirs published in 2002, and I'd encourage you guys, anybody that's interested in this stuff, to look it up. On page 405 of David Rockefeller's memoirs, his father was one of the founders of the Federal Reserve, and he admitted that his family is part of a group of individuals that are conspiring against the United States to create world government. And he says it in his own words, in his own memoirs.
Technically, he calls himself a globalist, which is actually, he tries to not, when he admits to aligning himself with a world peace will come through interdependence of other nations, economies, and banking. That's his theory for world peace. It's not actually like
he says, that's word for word, he says working against the best interest of the United States.
Yeah, I'm just saying, Rockefeller, and as well as the other people that he's connected to, globalists, is literally an ideology that exists for those purposes, and that's part of what drives the Keynesian economic theory, is that world peace is attributed, or nuclear war will be avoided if we can.
But isn't it amazing that the people that push for world peace through world government are the ones that are funding all the wars? Isn't that kind of interesting? I'll quit talking now, but I got a ton of DVDs and newspapers if anybody wants to see the evidence on it. So.
I've also got some papers as well, if anyone wants a little bit more information on the Fed and some of the histories behind banking. So that DVD, that's Fiat
This is
Empire.
Fiat Empire. Yeah.
Fiat Empire explains how the Fed was created and what it's doing to the economy at the moment. Whether it's a malicious thing or whether it's just a bunch of idiots who don't know what it is they're doing. It's very revealing as to what is taking place in our economy right now.
Cool. Nick, thank you so much. Currently, next week we do not have a topic, but I think a great follow-up